Hi, folks. Glad you're back here on Make Spring Valley Lake Great Again, your town talk. Folks, I have a special guest. In fact, Larry Hoover. Some of you might know him, some of you might not. Larry was and the beginning of this podcast. You were my first interview, Larry. And, I had a lot of mistakes. I was learning in the learning process of this podcast.
I was a willing guinea pig.
You were, man. You were my guinea pig there at that time. And you said, let's do it. And we did it. It was a great podcast. So any of you folks that are on the other side of the screen that have not seen it or might not know Larry, go see those 2 episodes. They were in the beginning episodes. And besides that, you guys, I'm babysitting my little one here, my little dog. So you might see him here in the shot, but he's going to leave us alone. I'm sure of it. So Larry, got you back. I am so glad I got you back.
I am so happy that you're doing this. I've been looking for something like this for years. So thank you.
Well, for the folks on the other side of the screen, because we've got since the beginning of this, we've got a lot of people that are watching. We've got even people from Apple Valley that are watching that I have met that said, hey, I'm watching your podcast, that don't even live here. And so thanks for watching, you guys. It's just, we appreciate every single one of you. But in the beginning, and for the people that don't know you, Larry, I think it's so important because in that last podcast, when I asked you of all the things that you have done, it kind of like set the stage on who you really are. I was so impressed. And I had people from on that other show say, oh my gosh, I had no clue who Larry was. But I'm going to let you just take it away, Larry. Let people know what you told on that last podcast as far as who you are. I mean, what have you done in your past? Because you got qualifications like from a whole arm length.
I don't want to get into a lot of detail, and I don't like bragging, but if you want to know my background, I've been all over the place. I spent over 20 years in the Air Force.
Yep.
So, I did that. I was specialized in logistics. When I got out of the Air Force, I worked for the aerospace industry for several years before the aerospace industry went kaput, and that was back in the 90s. I was involved in what they call acquisition logistics, and that's where you're trying to plan on supporting systems that you're going to deploy wherever you're going to deploy them. The large systems, how are you going to support it? That's what I was doing.
Right.
Learning how to work with engineers, planners, to figure out how we're going to support this thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did earlier in life. Once the industry went downhill, that's the aerospace industry, I ended up having to look for work. And I did a little bit of everything. I worked on the railroad.
Yeah.
I did substitute teaching.
Wow.
My wife and I got involved at the retirement facility where we managed retirement, independent retirement facilities.
Right.
Worked with elderly people. Learned how, what the challenges are in aging. Mm-hmm. Learn how to focus on making sure you're hydrated and making sure you're active and staying mobile, that sort of thing. Yeah. So that's what we did before we more or less settled here.
Right.
And that was about 20 years ago. So when we settled here and we bought in 2004, I had a little extra time. So I got involved with the COPs, that's Citizens on Patrol.
Okay.
Got involved with them, and from them, I got involved with some other folks that were associated with them. And that's how I got involved with the association itself.
Right.
Because people in the COPs were, somewhat associated with what was going on in the association. And I started attending meetings of different people. And it was right about that time, it was 2004, 2005, when they had initiated a recall of the entire board of directors, all
Mhm.
7 of them.
Mhm.
They failed.
Wow.
And that was my introduction. There was a town hall meeting that was facilitated by somebody from Barstow.
Right.
And there's a town hall meeting. There's hundreds of people in the room there at the community center. And she wrote up a whole bunch of several pages of notes taken from people complaining about things. And then I was asked to be a part of a small group where we're going to take all these notes and try to figure out what to do.
Right.
These are all complaints, all bitches and moans and things that were wrong.
Right.
This is my introduction to Spring Valley Lake.
Wow. Wow.
And so I ended up at that point chairing the plan as a new planning committee.
Yeah.
And one of the first things we did was we tried to narrow down something that we can actually work on, something that we can actually do.
Right.
And one of the main things, at least I feel like we were actually able to get done, we focused on the, of all things, the parkway.
Mhm.
At that point in time, the parkway median was totally unlandscaped at all.
Yeah.
We spent at least a couple of years, the committee, getting various designs, working with different, like the garden center in Hesperia, trying to come up with the right plants, the right kind of landscape. And we were finally able to get the board to
Mhm.
okay
Mhm.
redoing the landscape in the median. The median is not our property,
Right.
but it's right in the middle of our main street.
Which I was surprised on that.
Since
Yeah.
the county was not maintaining it,
Mhm.
we figured, well, we'll just go ahead and put it in the money and make it look nice.
Right.
That was my first accomplishment. I'm
Nice.
pretty proud about that.
Nice. Nice.
So,
Yeah.
And then some years later, one of the board members, one of the presidents of the board, had been looking for somebody to chair the lake committee.
Yeah.
Nobody was wanting to be on the lake committee.
Mhm.
And it was Scott Eckert
Mhm.
that asked me if I would chair the lake committee.
Right.
I don't live on the lake. I don't use the lake, but I said, Scott, if you need somebody, I'll do what I can.
Right.
So that got me involved with the lake. I served as chair for 2 or 3 years. And at that point in time, we were able to get started
Mhm.
with Steve Troop and
Right.
Hank McGill.
Okay.
Took me on a tour of the fishing areas around the lake
Mhm.
and saw how pitiful things were. They weren't landscaped.
Mhm.
They
Right.
looked horrible. So I thought, well, okay, we should do something about this. It's been a long time.
Right.
So we were able to get the board to agree to set aside some money, and we actually got the people in the operations people to do the work and hire contractors and whatnot to help, and got at least several of the fishing areas landscaped.
Mhm.
That was our lake committee accomplishment.
Right.
So I took a break in 2014, went and worked on the oversight committee at the college, Sabana Oversight Committee, for a couple of years. And then 2018, I came back and I learned there was something wrong with the lake.
Mhm.
Somebody I knew lived on the lake was complaining about the lake stinking where he lived.
Mhm.
I thought they had that under control, so I attended the next lake committee meeting. Nobody showed up.
Mhm. Wow. Wow.
And that's where I met some other folks. Some of them were on the yacht club.
Mhm.
That's where I met them, and they started and working on trying to figure out what they're going to do with the lake. And one of my pet peeves was, let's focus on cleaning up the water.
Mhm.
That's what makes the lake stink, is the water, and it's polluted. It's not properly maintained. And so I harped on that until finally we were able to get something started. It's still not solved. There's still things that need to be done, but that's
But
my
it's
background.
but it's gotten better than what it was.
They're still working on it.
Okay.
There's
Still working on it.
things to be done.
Got it.
So that's my background. I'm a doer. I know that there's a lot of things that still need to be done. There's lots of things to complain about, but if I don't do it, I have no right to complain about it.
Right. Well, you have been on quite a few committees. You've been pretty well involved for a long time, for as many years that you
I've
have been
served
here.
on
Yeah,
and chaired
yeah,
several committees.
several committees. So you've been pretty well involved,
Yeah.
and you've seen a lot of different things. And not only that, under Jay Cohen, you were taken down. For the people that don't know, I know we talked about it last time. You were taken down for no reason, and under Jay Cohen, and that's why I was saying, with the people that do get involved, that are doers like yourself, you know, you like I always call people, the golden nuggets, and those are the people that you need, and those are the people that you uplift. You don't censor, you don't remove. So you were one of them that happened to. So I do want to mention that. I know that you've been involved with previous elections because we're in an election cycle. In fact, at that time, the first time that we had our you were the very first person I interviewed. I wasn't even planning on running for the board at that time. We were just talking about it. We were just talking about that we had a upcoming election, and I think our first podcast was like 4 months ago. We were going to see where this was going to go, this podcast, and now it's really taken off, and it's pretty special. I'm very excited about it. I mean, we've learned a lot, through that, and but we talked about the election cycles before, and you were very involved with a guy named Jim Carr, as you spoke last time, that was very involved with the elections. Let me ask you this. From the elections back then to where we're at right now, what do you see? What's your opinion? I mean, is this like the most important election that you feel, right now, as a homeowner out there seeing what you're seeing?
To answer your question directly, yes, this is probably the most important election that I have seen in 20 years. When I first got involved and when I first met Jim Carr, he was Mr. Country Club. Everybody knew Jim. He was alerted to the fact that the association had nearly been going bankrupt during the 1990s, because the board did not want to raise the assessment to keep the dues down.
Yeah.
They didn't, they were complaining about raising the dues, so they didn't. But they kept increasing the cost of living to the point where they were drawing down reserves. So they learned that they were nearly bankrupt, and they figured, well, then they're going to have to get board members, candidates, willing to, do it,
Right.
in spite of complaints about it, in order to get us to where we're functioning financially, and we're not going to go bankrupt. So that's what Jim did, and he was helped by people like Joe Brady and others to recruit people willing to step up and make sure that we keep our finances in order and get them back in order and keep them in order. We did that several years. I was a helper. I didn't do the recruiting, but I helped do the election campaigning signs and stuff like that. So that's was the origin of Spring Valley Lake Concerned Property Owners.
Right.
Something that Joe talked about. So we did that quite a number of years, and then Jim Carr got to the point where he couldn't do it anymore. So he's still with us, but he's advanced age.
Right.
So, but the elections turned out to be on the ones that we recruited were either on the odd year was 3, or in the even year was 4. We had 4 people that we interviewed them, make sure they were willing to abide by the the agenda that we wanted to increase the dues enough to cover the cost. So that's what was going on, at least up until about the 2020. Then we stopped doing that, and things went downhill. So I see slates now, but they're not. I haven't had anything to do with the slates up until this year. And now we're at a point where things are serious. We've been going downhill. I've heard a lot of people complain about things. where are we going? How are we going to turn things around?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Vicki earned my respect
Mm-hmm.
in the last year.
Yes. Well, I've been, you know, I mean, I've had several. In fact, actually, I'm getting ready to do a part 3 with Vicki here. In fact, actually, tomorrow evening, and we're getting you. You are a fiduciary. What you didn't mention is that you do work for the government. You help out veterans that are disabled. Larry does. So he is a licensed fiduciary, and his financial background, which he didn't mention, is like up to here and all that. And it would be a long podcast. It would probably be like part 1, part 2, for you and I. And we said, you know what, we're gonna do this. We're gonna try and keep it as short as we can, for you folks that are behind the screen. But it was really important to bring Larry because he was the very first year that kicked off this podcast, and I felt it was very important just because, number one, you're the fiduciary here for our campaign, for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
You are the one that has been handling all the money. You've been taking care of, and I appreciate each and every one of you that have donated back there. And I will say it again and again and again. Our campaign here for the Fix It Forward. We appreciate you so much, you guys. And there's a lot of names that don't want to be mentioned, but there are some pretty amazing people back there behind that screen. You have been handling that. I've always said, you are one of those individuals that I can give the key to my house and never have to worry about anything if I ended up going on for a month vacation. You are one of those guys. And I appreciate our friendship because you were kind of like one of the very first person that I was led to. And not only that, guys, Larry encouraged me to run as well. He encouraged me to run as well. When we were just talking about, hey, we got an election coming up, blah, 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 and, I have followed Vicki for the last 2 years and have seen a lot. And I already knew that was a person to run with because, obviously she's the most attacked person that I've ever seen on a board in my 40 plus years here. So I know there's something that's special about her because she's willing to speak up. She's willing to ask questions. And we've seen this because you've been to the board meetings as well. Currently, we want to talk about a few things here, and being that we got that because, like I say, there's a lot of people that don't know Larry, and I wanted Larry, to say who he was because, just to bring it up to par, because Larry has been involved. He's not one of those that have been here just a meeting or so, and and now here's to say the date. He has been here for a long time, and you have spent many, 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 many hours of your time to try to help solve things. You've been a problem solver. What are the things we were kind of like going over some of the things that you were talking about, the consortium? What do you see in that? This has been kind of like a big talk. I had it here on a previous podcast, the consortium, just because you're a financial fiduciary. What do you see on that, Larry, that where we're at with this consortium contract? What do you think? What's your opinion?
Well, about consortium, I want to be as brief as I can. My first interaction with consortium was about the fall of 2024, about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
I called them. I had a question about something, and I got the runaround, and I was a little frustrated with them. And then I had something happen that they were accusing me of, and so I thought, well, I've never dealt with these people before. They're dealing with our finances. I want to see if I can get some help dealing with these people. And I ended up asking Vicki,
Mm-hmm.
and she's the only one. She's the only one that volunteered to attempt to help.
Mm-hmm.
And she did intervene. I don't think the consortium responded appropriately or to my satisfaction, but at least I know Vicki tried. And then that was my introduction to actually start paying attention to what Vicki was saying
Mm-hmm.
about her interactions with consortium.
Mm-hmm.
And I was paying attention to the fact that she kept asking questions and not getting answers.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, that's sort of the same thing that I had. I I just one little question that I was asked is just for me, and I wasn't getting the appropriate answer.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, if this is their habit, this is what they do, something is seriously wrong.
Mhm.
And so I want Vicki to get reelected, and I want her to follow through and find out what consortium has been doing. If they've been doing something that is not right, we want to make it right.
Right. Mhm.
And so, I want to follow through on that.
Yep. Not that we're making any allegations here, but when something doesn't look right, it's not right. Period. And this $1.8 million, which is actually even more than that, that has become is definitely in question. Whose bank account it is, and nobody can understand that. In fact, it's funny is because I spoke over here at the College of the Board of Trustees here yesterday, and Jay Colin said the same thing. He mentioned. I noticed that he mentioned in his speech and all that, and I definitely go and watch that at the Board of Trustees as you guys have it. And I'll leave a link here to watch that. And we did really great, guys. We did really great. But definitely watch that. And he even talks about, as far as the money, but it's not in our account. So this has been the big question. Where is that money at? So,
When people don't answer the question straight out,
exactly.
It raises suspicion.
It sure does, amongst all of us. And I think, and it's funny, Larry, is that, I have spent a lot of time up there in the post office. Hey, I got my little guy here, guys. You see, I got him right here. I've been spending a lot of time up there in the post office, and it's amazing what people will say. And and a lot of people are just, they're questioning a lot of different things. I hear it from, the people that I talk to at the post office. People are watching what the heck is going on here. And, so, okay, here we go. There he goes. That was Bentley, you guys. And, so, this has been a thing that has been in question and all that, and we're going to go further on it, in other podcasts, as well. I know we wanted to talk about the, you mentioned as far as the lake, the coving, because I mean, that is going to be a huge project,
Yeah.
What do you want to say about that there, Larry?
Well, I referred to earlier that I have been on the Lake Committee. I served as chair of Lake Committee, and I went off and I went back on and served on the Lake Committee for another 5 years. So I'm sort of invested in the lake, even though I don't use it, I don't live on it, but I'm invested because I know as a homeowner, as a person who pays assessments, goes to maintain the lake. So I want to know what's going on. So I know probably as much or more than most people do about the lake. And that's just because, the background I've had. So what's going on right now, it was Gentera that the board contracted with back in 2023 to evaluate what it would take to fix the coving. It's a 7-mile lakeshore coving. That coving is the concrete that protects the shoreline that is aligned right next to people's properties. And so the coving is to protect the shoreline, to keep the dirt, the ground,
the erosion
from eroding.
Yeah, from eroding there.
So it's been going on for 55 years now, and it was in the late 1990s that the court definitely said that we are responsible for maintaining it. And we only went down on the lake 3 times in the recent past to do repairs on several each time. There's approximately 559 lakefront properties.
Wow.
And we've only done maybe a few dozen. And so the Gentera report back 3 years ago outlined a couple of different options. And those options varied in terms of scope and cost, in terms of time. And I don't remember the specific numbers, but they're like in the tens of millions of dollars.
Mm.
Tens of millions of dollars. Nothing was done after that Gentera report was published, but it was Tim Craig who brought it up and had a town hall meeting, I don't know, several months later, and brought this back up.
Mm-hmm.
And I attended that, and I had a chance to talk to Tim at that time. And then he ran for the board. He got elected, he became president. And then it was, I think, the Gentera report that generated the interest by people on the Lake Committee.
Right.
I had already left the Lake Committee by this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there were people on the Lake Committee decided, well, they want to, follow up and see if they could do this more cheaply than what the Gentera report was indicating. And they came up with some material that they thought they could do it a lot cheaper than maybe traditional material. And it was presented, it was about a year ago that Lake Committee had the general manager make a presentation about what the Lake Committee was proposing to do with a certain amount of money that was available in our treasury.
Right.
The board did not accept that proposal. Their response was, general manager, put together a request for proposal and get that out and get competitive bids for the entire lake shoreline,
right.
7-mile lake shoreline. Let's find out what this is going to take.
Right.
We want to make sure that we know how much it's going to cost. We want to know what the risks are in doing the work.
Yeah.
We want to know, how it's going to get done, and we want guarantees. We no ifs, ands, or buts.
Right.
And I thought, well, this makes sense. This is the proper way of doing business. Protect yourself. Get a licensed, experienced contractors who know what they're doing. They're going to put in the time to plan it out, make sure they're covered, give us a price, give us guarantees. That's the way to do it. In the meantime, we have this proposal from the Lake Committee, who's still sitting there, and the general manager has not produced an RFP. There are no kind of competitive bids, as far as I know, coming in, because there's no RFP that's going out. So it makes you wonder what is going on.
Right.
And last thing I heard was Vicki said the board indicated the lake is going to come down this fall, and probably in September, and then they're going to invite these contractors come in and evaluate what's involved and start providing the bids. So that's what I understand, but there's still people saying there's confusion and there's kind of, not sure what's going on. That needs to be fixed.
Right.
We need a definite indication as to what is involved, what we're going to do, and we definitely need the RFP. We need kind of competitive bids to come in.
Right.
That's the way to do business. That's to protect me, to protect all of us homeowners,
right,
from having to pay for somebody's mistakes that we never even foresaw.
Well, and it could be a huge liability as well.
Exactly.
It could be a huge liability. In fact, I want to mention something, just because, at the post office, and I have to say, oh my gosh, I have so many people that, and I keep going back to that, you guys, through this whole time, I've heard through the grapevine, I'm just saying, that somebody has already bought this rolls of GeoCell and they have it stored. This is what I'm hearing. So how true? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. People have mentioned it at the post office. That needs to be questioned. It's like, okay, so what is going on? Because, I'm with you. There could be a huge liability of in-house as well. Think about, and I'll post. There's a video that I want to do, you guys, and I have a whole breakdown that I ended up putting on out. And, and I know the Lake Committee has done a fantastic job, for the 5 years, that they were talking about, they've been working on it, so I'm not going to, say anything bad about anybody and all that, but there are things that need to be answered. And I have a link that I'm going to put down on in our description here that will talk about in-house stuff, like we're just talking about, some of the liability problems that could create for the association members, and so I will include that down on here. But going back to, I've got something that I had plans. I haven't put it up yet, but it's like a whole breakdown, and it'll show you. You'll get it here as far as on the lake. So I know this is going to be it's going to be our biggest expense for one thing. So it looks like we got a big old wind in here, you guys. we got the fan going right now. We got Mr. Bentley here. So it. So what else do you want to add to that?
Well, you mentioned in-house, and this is something that I neglected to bring in my previous comment. The Lake Committee proposal, as I remember, indicated they wanted to use in-house labor. And there's good reasons to use in-house labor as much as possible for those things that in-house labor are qualified to do. However, when we're talking about, if we're talking about using in-house labor for the coving repair, we're talking about a process that's going to take a lot of time. And if we're going to use in-house maintenance labor, you're going to use that for the coving. What those people that are doing the labor, what were they hired to do in the first place? If you're going to put them to do the coving, what about the work that they were doing in the first place? That doesn't make any sense to me. If you're going to use in-house labor to do something like this, which requires very, there's skills involved in planning, and you have to have some accountability here. Using in-house labor doesn't make any sense to me, because people who are in-house already have a job.
Right.
They should be continuing to do that job. And if we have a lot of extra labor that they can assign to coving, we have too many people.
I agree. That makes sense.
Simple.
That makes sense. Plain and simple. That makes a lot of sense. So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? I mean, there's so much stuff, Larry, that you just say, okay, where do we go from here? And that's the important thing, is that's where I feel, just like you do, is that you have to have an RFP. You have to have people that come on in and bid it, and they're the ones that are doing it instead of in-house labor. So,
Well, I don't know if you have anything in your mind you want to go next, but I have my notes here, and I did want to make a comment. Something that I have experienced here in the recent past, and it had something to do with my asking for information from the association office, and I was denied. This had to do with lake coving, because of my own personal investment in the lake situation. I thought, well, I want to know for myself what is really going on here, and what is the extent of the lake coving damage. Mm-hmm. And I understood that there was pictures and videos of the coving that had been done when the lake was down before. And I had heard about this, and so I asked them, I put on a special request form, I want to see the pictures and videos. And it was almost ready to give them to me, and then the general manager decided to ask the board whether it was okay for him to give these things to me. I think it was already on a thumb drive, ready for him to give it to me. But he asked the board came up, and they had a discussion on it, and they decided to deny me access to those videos and those photos. And I think that illustrates the difference in terms of the definition of how do we define, how do we understand the notion of transparency. Mm-hmm. My understanding, this is the way I see transparency, is that the association is allowed to give you whatever information you ask for unless there's a privacy or confidentiality or some other legal reason not to share it with the general public or the general membership.
Right.
That's transparency. Anything that you ask for, I'm allowed to, I give it to you. That's transparency.
Right.
The answer, the response I got from the board was, we don't have to give it to you. There's nothing in the law that says we have to give it to you, so we're not going to give it to you. So, this is another reason why I support Vicki, is because she's all about transparency.
Big time
She
transparency.
says exactly what I've been feeling for years.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
That, we don't have enough transparency. People are ignorant because people are not telling them what they need to know. They're not making enough effort to get information to people.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough effort to do that. So anyway, that brings me to what we were talking about earlier before this podcast started. Danny and I met more or less in the communications committee almost 2 years ago.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And this is when Vicki became liaison to the communications committee when she got first on the board. And I thought to myself, when I was the chair of the planning committee, I was one of the ones who moved to create the communications committee in the first place.
Right.
And I thought to myself, over the years, the communications committee never really functioned the way I had envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
So when Vicki came along, I thought, well, okay, here we got a board member who understands transparency communication like I do. I want to be involved and see what we can do. Right. That's where I met you. And so that's what I want to redo, get back in. Once you're elected, I want you to be liaison. I want to get back on and get some other people on the communications committee and redesign how we communicate with our membership.
Right.
There's a special way of doing this. There's people who know how to do it. We need to corral and leverage these people.
Right.
And learn and institutionalize communication.
Mm-hmm.
So we get more people engaged.
Right.
One thing I've learned in 20 years is that there's a lot more to do than people are to do it.
Right.
You elect people for the board members do what they can, but they're new, they don't know what they're doing until they've been on the board for a year. Mm-hmm. And then they move on and then they don't come back. And then the people on the committee, you never have enough people on the committees.
Yeah.
Long term. So things need to be done. There's not enough people to do it.
Right.
And so people will see, well, this is not getting done, that's not getting done, and they complain about it. Well, it's not getting done because the people who are responsible, that's all of us. Mm-hmm. Not enough of us are volunteering to do it.
Right.
So this part of communication, trying to engage people, to get them to understand that we're all responsible. We need to help each other. We need to engage with each other. And in spite of our differences, try to get something done that is good for the rest of all of us.
Right. Well, you made a good point, because back in that time, we were talking about the heartbeat of this community, which was the website.
Yeah.
And I feel very strongly about it. Now, you just at a board meeting just heard, and I know they're using WordPress, all good. I'm glad that they have gotten away from Project A, which was the ones that had our website. That eventually, they will go away. Our website will be. But you even heard the board president, mention, it's $60, $60. It's $60, and I see a lot more potential with that website. And I've always been really big with that it needs to be the heartbeat. That's the reason why I ended up going at that time as far as being part of that communication committee, because that is the heartbeat of it all. And along with, and I will say, and if you look at the other, I was talking about the message board. Mm-hmm. I was talking about a message board, that would relate things to the community here. I was big on that. I brought a big drawing, the whole biz, and got kind of shot down. But then I noticed the Victor Valley College, they're huge on that. I mean, they, as you drive in our parkway, you'll see that they got a message board there that all of a sudden went up, and they got the one there, and on Bear Valley. That's very important to their community. I mean, that's why I say, my gosh, people, go watch their board meetings. I'm just telling you, go watch their board meetings. Amazing. Like last night, amazing. They uplift their counselors. They uplift their students. I mean, we seen it right before we ended up speaking there at the Victor Valley College. That's why I say you uplift people. You have this. You have the website to be the heartbeat of your community, where it's easy to navigate. We've always talked about this. We were big parts in here in the beginning, and I appreciate everybody that has worked on it here. I appreciate it. But I think we can do better than just $60. You know what I'm saying? I think we can do a lot better than that. And we get into the board, and all four of us get on in. I will tell you, I got things that are in the background right now that I am waiting. I am just waiting. So I'm very excited.
I remember when I first met you, the first couple of meetings, you brought out that drawing.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that drawing says everything.
Exactly.
What he had was the website is in the center, and around this center website was all these other tools, communication tools,
right,
that interacted with the center. It's like the center of a wheel with spokes. And
right.
It goes around, and that's what keeps things moving. And that the center here was the center of all the information, which all these other spokes are leading to point you to the information that you need or that you're looking for.
Right.
And then you have a built-in the website itself, a way of navigating easily to where you want to be.
Exactly.
Find it without having to struggle and try to find out the right word to use. It should be something very simple,
exactly,
very
simple.
Navigable.
Simple is best, but appealing. I mean,
I love the concept because you drew that so you captured exactly the way I thought.
Yeah, it's a heartbeat. In closing, let's talk about one other subject here, and it just recently happened. So in closing on here, let's talk about the park. Okay, let's talk about Middle Log Park. Okay, let's talk about what happened here. We had. How do you feel about this? But what I see, and I went on over that when I heard about it. In fact, actually, again, the post office. I had a young lady that came up to me and all that, and she was giving me ideas for the park, and I thought they were incredible. And she was telling me she's got a child that's autistic, and very, very nice young lady. She was telling me all about it and then telling me about ideas for the park and everything else. And says, you know what, that's really awesome. And I took the notes and told her that I would, if elected and all that, we win the Fix It 4, that we would bring some of her ideas to the park. So in that, we're not talking about just a few days later, she comes back to come get her mail over the post office. I see her again, and she goes, can you believe they've closed the park down? So I had no idea, okay? I didn't see other things as far as the message and all that. I've been very busy here with this campaign and all that. And so she ended up telling me, same lady, can you believe this park? And I thought, oh, okay, I'll have to go check this on out. So the very next morning, I went on over early in the morning and I took videotape. I mean, it was all taped around, and to discover that it, when they ended up doing the wood chips, they had termites on them, okay? Termites. And so, you would think they had it marked off, and so they had to treat it. But the bizarre thing about it is that if you look at the website, what they sent out to the community here, not only did they do that, but there was nothing that was marked other than just the yellow tape. Well, they ended up treating it, and I guess they treat it with like granules there with the park. I thought they were probably going to spray it, but they treat it with the granules. But on the comment of that, and I thought, this is crazy, that for children not to put anything in their mouth. But yet, children put things in their mouth. So you would almost think that they would mark it to where they would tell what they ended up putting there in the park. I mean, the hazard. I mean, that obviously that's hazard. They're already warning the children, the parents, not to have their kids put their hands in their mouth. And this was it was like quick. Wasn't anything that was like, okay, we give it some time. We're going to figure this on out. Nothing was posted with anything. As far as what they ended up using for, to try to kill the termites, which I thought was kind of bizarre. I mean, what do you think about that there, Larry?
Well, I don't know all the facts for myself, but what
Mhm.
I've heard was what you've been just talking about.
Yeah.
The the people that actually treated the park, I guess they did what they were told to do, I assume, but I don't know the facts. But if they treated it in such a fashion that children should be aware and not put stuff in their mouth, um, number one, children don't read those notices that go on Facebook or Deep Dive or wherever it is that
Exactly.
they post it. The children aren't going to read that. And I don't know how many people actually read the Deep Dive or what's posted on Facebook. I don't know if the association people that do that know who's reading it or how many read it.
Hmm.
But when you do something like that they did with the park, uh, I just think a lot more effort should go into making sure that people are protected. And it sort of reminds me of that 5G tower that you got involved with a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's,
I just couldn't imagine the association even thinking about putting a 5G tower in the middle of our park where there's people and there's kids
a
and
footprint,
everything.
80 feet high.
But
Crazy.
but these things need to be thought out more
Exactly.
carefully, and it comes back to communication. We don't know who's listening, who's reading. We
Hmm.
need to know who our audience is, how to get to our audience, who needs to, and how to get to them to get them what they need to know,
Right.
so they don't end up doing something that's going to hurt them.
Well, you know what? I appreciate it on the deep dive. I mean, that alert was put on out. So, two thumbs up on that to alert everybody. But the bizarre thing is that children are going to do it, and I have to go to the mother of the autistic kid too. I have to go to her. It's like, man, her all the kids are sharing that park, and if there's nothing that is posted afterwards, you know, I don't know. I haven't been there since, but I would probably imagine it probably isn't. You know, those granules, those don't go over overnight. They're going to be there for a while. You know what I mean? They take a while to, decompose, I would believe. But, I thought it was just kind of bizarre. I had to bring that on up. I'm sure everybody else has, their own opinion about that. But, I just had to bring that up. And so, Larry, in closing, is there anything you'd like to say to everybody?
Well, in closing, I would just like to thank you again for
Yeah.
initiating this podcast thing. It's something that I had been looking for. I had no idea about a podcast, but the fact is, I know that we weren't communicating very well, and I just really love the fact that you, specifically in doing this, and all the efforts that Vicki has been doing with her weekly or monthly thing with on Facebook and whatnot. She's trying to communicate with people
Mm-hmm.
and interact with people, the membership,
Right.
and taking questions and taking concerns and trying to relate and get information out that needs to get out. I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
This is wonderful. This
Yeah.
is it takes more than one person to do anything around here. The more people that are doing it, the more we can work together,
Mm-hmm.
the better off we're going to be. So I just want to thank you and Vicki and the team, the Fix It team,
Yeah.
for putting yourself out there and in volunteering to put in the extra effort to raise the level of the community.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Larry. Thank you so much for your kind words. I appreciate your friendship. I've learned a lot from you. It's not like one of those things that where, I know everything. I think everybody has their special talent, in this community. And this is the reason why I always say, your greatest asset are the people within our community. And, where things that I might lack, we have people in our community here that really pick it up in a really big way, guys. And this is where I appreciate everybody, appreciate all of you that are behind the screen, for taking your time to watch this. This has nothing to do with the association here that of us putting it out. This is just for neighbor to neighbor. And, this is our town talk. So we kind of felt that, hey, had to do this. And I appreciate you being back there, you guys behind the screen. And Larry, thank you very much. And like I always say, like Larry's showing here on the hats, you guys have a great Spring Valley Lake day.